We need to catch up with Brad Gray and get the latest. Very good morning to you, Brad. Tell me about how much rain has fallen and what we're likely to see track-wise, because it's been affected significantly by scratchings thus far.
Yeah, good morning, Greg. Unfortunately, we copped the deluge. They did forecast it. They said it was coming all week, and it came overnight. We copped over 30 mils, which has tipped us well into the heavy 10 range. So certainly get your snorkel and your flippers, because you've got to find your swimmers there at Rosehill, unfortunately.
We've got $500,000 in the Vinery Stud Stakes. The first we want to have a look at with you. Field headed up by Nikita Jane. Very elegant, of course. Trained by Chris Waller. Filly by Zed. Track conditions shouldn't be of concern. She's only had one start on a heavy track and was winning, and has James McDonald today.
Yeah, she's clearly a horse to beat for me. I think she's one of the better bets of the entire program. I was really confident about Very Elegant just on a soft track. Now you've got a heavy 10, 2,000 metres. I find it very hard to see anything beating her. She was really dominant in the far lap last start, and that was with a gap between runs. She had a little setback with Sorpa Mr. Guineas down in Melbourne, but she travelled okay for her. We know she's a horse that can get a little bit keen. She's slowly working it out. A few little gear changes again today to hopefully get her to settle, but even if she does, her normal trait, which is just get a bit keen mid-race, she's still shown in the past that she can still produce a big finish at the end there. I think Barrier 5's perfect for her just to tuck in behind the speed and rip home over the top. We're still getting black odds. I think it'll be a little bit closer to odds on once we come jump, because I think a lot of punters are going to see that wet track form and start piling in. Really deep crop of fillies. So Nikita Jane, she's done very little wrong, of course. She was very brave there in the Randwick Guinea, chasing Oma a hot speed. She's already got a Group 1 on the board this time in, winning over 1,400 metres in the Group 1 surround. She's yet to tick that wet track box. So a little query with her. If you want to play around the multiples, I'd certainly be including the 11 Scarlet Dream at the double figure odds. She's a horse that profiles like she'll handle the wet. The further they go, the better she'll get. She looks a real Oaks, or maybe even back up in the Derby next week, candidate for Mark Newnham. So if you want to play a little bit outside of the favourite or throw in a few multiples, I think you certainly want to include the 11, but 3 Very Elegant, really hard to beat.
Has that high head carriage, of course, which I suppose puts people off a little bit, but gee, when she puts in, she's very, very good. Let's have a look at the Tancred Stakes, Brad, and our favourite at the top of the book, Avelius. Again, James McDonald looks to be in for a pretty good day. The winner of 9 from 17, Red Cardinal at $6, the only other one wanted on the page. But Avelius bounced back from the disappointing Australian Cup run last time.
He certainly did. He's undefeated in Sydney, which certainly counts for something. The wet track doesn't look to pose a problem for him. Being a son of Pivotal, we know he gets through the ground well in the past. He's handled the wet, including their last start. Showed a really good turn of foot, as you touched on the Rambit Stakes. His last 400 metres, his acceleration is so superior at the end of these staying races that he just blows fields away. The only query for him, if you're looking at the $1.60, is the quick backup. That's an obstacle he has never faced before in the past. And you often find with these French or European imports that they do tend to do their best racing when kept a little bit fresh. So keep that in the back of your mind. I know a few punters will be a little bit nervous looking at the $1.60 if they did chime in the Australia Cup there at the same odds, but he certainly does look the horse to beat. Trip, no issue, and I think he'll scoot through and probably win, but $1.60 short enough. If you want to have a play in the race, I'd be leaning towards Patrick Aaron, the 6. He's a horse that obviously the Kiwis know plenty about. He's a Metrop winner last campaign. Last start completely panned the run. He pulled up 3 out of 5 lane, copped a nasty bump soon after the start, and that put him completely out of the race. The market isn't being as forgiving as me here, so I think you're getting a really big odds about a horse that's going better than the form suggests. If you want to back him each way, you're probably getting $5 or $6 for him to run a hole. Outside of that, Red Cardinal going well for Chris Lee, Big Duke going well, but also for Chris Lee, they're 2 that handle the wet track. So it really is hard to beat. Patrick Aaron is probably the way you want to play, particularly around that place price.
The Tancred, what a great race it's been over the years. Won, of course, by the mighty Bone Crusher, Tie the Knot a couple of times, octagonal. You have to be a good horse to win it. Let's have a look at the Tulloch Stakes and the Kiwi interest here, of course. Madison County missed last week, was awesome. First up in Australia, of course, in behind the Autumn Sun. He's 205 in a twinkling's $5. Placed second in the Derby, third in the New Zealand Derby was Platinum Invader. Blake Shin takes the ride. So much Kiwi interest up the top of the book here, Brad.
Yeah, there is Madison County. As you touched on, missed the run last week, but certainly don't hold that against him. He just took a little bit of skin off on a float trip over to the track. But superficial, so we just judge him on his best form. I was really keen on this horse until this big dump of rain, because he's the horse with the best turn of foot in the race. That negates that a little bit here. 2,000 metres, I was originally against Inner Twinkling and Platinum Invaded, simply due to Madison County going up in trip, whereas them coming back in trip. So I thought his turn of foot might be a little bit too sharp. But now we've got a heavy 10. It's going to turn into a real staying contest. So that damps my confidence a little bit. I'm still with him, but it certainly doesn't make me want to try him in there at the $2. Outside of the Kiwis, and I think they look to have a stranglehold on this race, which they so often do with our staying races over the Sydney Carnivals, go right down the bottom. Carriff looks a likely prospect for Peter and Paul Snowden, really well bred, so you think, out of Norzita. First time out in trip there at Newcastle. It was a Newcastle maiden, so a provincial win, but really relished the extra trip. And then the one below that, Shaman. Be interested to see what they do tactics-wise. The blinkers come off. However, 2 starts ago, was a little bit keen out in front, and they just let it run right through, and it led up the field at a good clip and just kept on going. That wasn't a heavy track. Again, as the provincials, but these kind of races can throw up the odd kind of strange result. So I am with Madison County, but a little bit of trepidation around a genuine heavy 10, where he's going to be in the map, and if he's going to handle this track. Because Tommy Berry came out and said during the week he's ridden the horse on a couple of occasions. One of those was on a soft deck. Felt really well, good turn of foot. Then rode the same horse, Madison County, again on a heavy track, and just didn't show that same zip. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes. But he's a horse to beat, no doubt, on the strength of that Randwick Guineas effort.
Ardrosson's unbeaten on a slow track, takes its place in the Star Kingdom for Stephen Marsh, is the favourite here at $2.60. Last start here in New Zealand, of course, was at Te Rapa in behind Melody Bell. That's a heck of a form line for a race like this, Brad.
Yeah, it is. You're right, Greg. The only query with him, I think it might be one of those races, or one of those horses, I should say, that's a little bit deceptive, his wet track form, because that run, which was clearly the best in his career behind Melody Bell, was on a good deck. Two of his soft track wins came up in his first 2 starts, so that can be a little bit deceptive. Where he fits into this, I'm not too sure. His trial, I thought, was just okay over here. Obviously, Stephen Marsh had a few little issues getting him right. Here he is today. I think he's certainly in the race, but I think you'll get better. If you do like the horse, I'd certainly wait, because I think the odds are a little bit skinny at the moment. If you're going to have a play, I'd be inclined to have something on Maximus. He's probably around double-figure odds. He's a horse that's racing out of his depth here, but he strikes a very winnable race in terms of the conditions. If he's ever going to win a group race, this is the 153 kilos. We know he handles the wet, had no luck whatsoever there. Last start at Randwick behind Renewal, so I think he's worth a play. But yeah, Ardrosson, I certainly respect him, but I think if you do like him, you'll get better.
Brad, suggested bets for you. Clearly the best bet, Very Elegant.
Yeah, I'm very confident that Very Elegant will be winning again and winning quite comfortably. Conditions to suit. And you go back and watch her replay there last start, and she was so strong through the line. I think she's going to take a hell of a lot of holding out. Maximus, a worthy gamble at the odds in a really suitable race. I think Estajar is vulnerable in that race too, so we can play around her. And in the Doncaster Prelude, I think we can have something on Mask of Time. Really tricky race when I first started doing this. However, now it's come up a heavy 10. He's a very fit horse, rolls along out in front. He's clearly the horse to beat. So those are the 3 we'll be playing there at Rosehill today.
Always appreciate your input into the Punters Lounge, Brad. Enjoy your Saturday.